Excuse me? A team that can't win but 2 playoff games in 23 years? It takes 3 playoff victories in 1 year at least to win a Super Bowl.
And I've been saying this now for 2 years. Kansas City is America's team. Everywhere I go, I see Chief stuff.
Not only has Jalen Hurts been to 2 Super Bowls, which is 2 more Super Bowls than Dak Prescott has been to, he's also been to 2 NFC Championship games, which is 2 more than Dak Prescott.
Cowboy fans, trust me, this team is a mess right now.
The most disappointing team this season in the NFL.
Dallas Cowboys.
The last 3 decades of Dallas Cowboys football has been a roller coaster, but can be summed up as a disaster that everyone's been talking about for years. But taking a step back from the media criticism and fans making fun of the Dallas Cowboys for this 30-year stretch of mediocrity, let's take a closer look at the phases that this team has been through since 1996 and how the team has went from America's team to the laughingstock of American sports. As a Cowboys fan that has seen the media rip this team apart for years, what makes the case of the Cowboys interesting to me is that at no point in the last 30 years was this team the single worst in the league. The thing that makes the situation even worse for the Cowboys fan is an extreme case of mediocrity. The most amount of losing seasons in a row that the Cowboys have had since 1995 was 3 in a row from 2000 to 2002. So why hasn't this team gotten over the hump? What has this team done to stay good enough to not be a bottom team in the league, but bad enough to not win multiple playoff games in a row? Let's go back and revisit the last era where this team was still dominant. The early 90s Cowboys were one of the best football teams ever constructed. Of course, they were led by the triplets, Michael Irvin, Emmitt Smith, and Troy Aikman, but the supporting cast was very strong, and Jimmy Johnson was one of the best coaches in the league. Everything came together for this team to be a dynasty, but after 3 Super Bowls, their short tenure of success ended in 1995. The late 1990s Cowboys were interesting. They still had talented players and kept their core of Smith, Aikman, and Irvin together for a few extra years into the late 90s. They made playoff runs but couldn't get over the hump with new coaching and a stacked NFC with the Packers, 49ers, and Vikings rising to the top of the conference. They lost early in the playoffs in 98 and 99, and their core that brought them glory was banged up and past their prime. A rebuild was in the works in Dallas in the early 2000s, but it was a sloppy rebuild at first. They weren't able to hit on draft picks and couldn't find their replacement for Troy Aikman. The early 2000s Cowboys is probably the most forgettable era in the team's history. There was no continuity in coaching, quarterback play, or just the team all around. You would think that this same trajectory would keep them out of the playoffs for a very long time. But obviously, this isn't what happened. The player that changed the course of Cowboys history forever was the greatest undrafted quarterback in NFL history. Enter Tony Romo. When you look back in hindsight, the Cowboys hit the lottery with discovering Tony Romo, and it's a shame that they couldn't do more with him. The Cowboys couldn't find a consistent quarterback option and wasn't in position to draft anyone super high. So when Tony Romo was thrusted into the spotlight and became a great player, fans instantly started to rally behind the guy. Every Cowboys fan today either has nightmares from the Romo era or loved everything about it. I personally love this era for the nostalgic feel of it, but I also understand that it could have been so much better. The bottom line with this era was simple. When the team was healthy, especially Romo, they were scary. But the problem was, they were only healthy for a handful of years. And the problem with the years that they were healthy was that they couldn't get over the hump. They were a great regular season team, but they just couldn't figure it out in the playoffs. Some blame this on Romo not being good enough, some blame coaching, and some blame the overall roster construction of the team. A lot of money was tied into stars, and the O-line wasn't consistent until about 2014. And in terms of when they did have a chance in the playoffs, they had some terrible luck. Everyone knows about 2006 with the botched hold, but in 2007, the Cowboys were the 1 seed and lost to the eventual champions in the divisional round. This same New York Giants team that they lost to, the Cowboys handily defeated twice in the regular season, but barely lost in the playoffs when it mattered. If this game went just slightly differently, the Cowboys would not only have a conference championship appearance, but a great chance to even make or win the Super Bowl. After an embarrassing playoff loss in 2009, the early 2010s Cowboys were plagued by injuries and a historically bad defense. They invested a lot of money in draft picks into offensive talent like Dez Bryant and DeMarco Murray, which paid off and made them a consistent top 5 offense. But it ended up costing them defensively. But this was until a magical but tragic year in Cowboys history, 2014. The Cowboys offense remained a powerhouse, but all it took for a good year was for the defense to go from terrible to just middle of the pack. And that's exactly what happened in 2014. This alone made the team a juggernaut. The team managed to stay healthy, the O-line was dominant, and the skill players that they invested so much money in were all healthy and at the peak of their powers. It was truly a recipe for a magical playoff run. But everyone knows what ended up happening in the playoffs that year. I'm sure a lot of Cowboys fans are scarred by this, so we're not going to talk about the catch any more than what's already been talked about. But once again, the trend had continued. The offense was doing their thing as long as Romo took care of the ball, but the defense was still letting them down in big games. As for Romo, taking care of the ball was a problem, and probably the biggest problem for most of his career. But when he was able to, he was really able to put together some great games. If he did that more often in the playoffs, this team probably would have had more of a chance to compete. But at the end of the day, the biggest weakness was always the defense. And when people thought the Cowboys would be right back in the same position the following year, Romo's career was pretty much over following 2014, as the next couple of years were plagued with injuries. In 2016, Romo was pretty much forced out of Dallas because of a new face that everyone is familiar with today. But after Romo's injury in 2016, people thought the rebuild was in full effect, and fans were expecting more years of mediocrity and tanking. But what happened instead was one of the most unbelievable seasons in NFL history. For me at the time, I was just really sad that the Cowboys had to push out Tony Romo. But at the same time, Dak Prescott taking the league by storm with Ezekiel Elliott was something that no one around the league saw coming. This duo, along with a solid O-line and defense for the first time in nearly a decade, the Cowboys looked like a complete team. The Cowboys came unbelievably close in another playoff game in 2016, but fans were excited for the future in the hands of this young core. Everyone knows the story from here. The years that went poorly were due to lackluster coaching and injuries. The years that did go well following 2016 were cut short in clutch moments because the defense just didn't show up and the offense just could not make up for it. We aren't going to waste our time looking at each individual playoff failure from this team in the Prescott era because it could all be summed up with poor coaching in late game situations, especially poorly schemed defenses, and Dak Prescott's lack of ability outside of the structure when the situation got tough. So the Dallas Cowboys' inability to reach levels that used to be regular for them isn't because of pure incompetency. They're not like the Browns or Jets or even the Texans for a long time, who have all failed in just about every aspect of team building. They're a unique case of having strengths that disappear in big moments and weaknesses that are exposed by opposing team in those same big moments. Throw in a little bit of bad luck in big situations, and there you have it. A team that's been rattled for 30 years, just going through the motions of losing big games at this point. Through these 30 years, the only constant has been ownership. And obviously, that's another point of criticism, which could have its own separate video. But in 2025 and beyond, who knows what the future holds for the Cowboys? Maybe one day they'll be blessed with more aggressive ownership and coaching like the good old days. But as of right now, nothing really seems like it's changing. Each year, there will be something new to be excited for, like George Pickens going into 2025. But at the end of the day, none of it will matter because the team still has the same glaring issues. They can win in the regular season with their formula, but playoff success just seems unlikely. It might take a while for this team to reach those same heights that they saw in the 90s again. You never know what could happen though, and maybe this year will be one that Cowboys fans will never forget. But it doesn't seem like this team has changed at all. The culture, players, coaching, and ownership is all the same, and Dallas sports fans should probably focus their attention on some other promising sports team and worry about the Cowboys once it's December to see if they stand a chance to compete. The media has been extremely critical with this team, and I have been mostly critical in this video as well. That's all because we know the potential that this team has, and in the team's current state, it just seems unlikely that they'll ever achieve what we know is possible. As a Cowboys fan, I hope the team somehow changes the narrative this year, but I just don't know how likely that is. But that's it for this video. Let me know what you think in the comments section. If you're a Cowboys fan, I especially want to hear your opinion. But if you're just an unbiased, neutral fan, let me know in the comments what you think and if this analysis was fair and what you think about the Cowboys. What could they potentially do to become a good team in the near future and a team that is competing for Super Bowls again? And will that even happen? Let me know in the comments section. If you did enjoy this video, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this for the rest of the offseason. Let me know if you want to see another video similar to this about a different team. But that's going to do it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next one.